I mean, where are you on that? What do you think they should do, not will do? What is best for the 49ers and for Trey Lance today, August 25?
Well, for the 49ers and for Trey Lance, the best for the 49ers is to keep Trey Lance as quarterback 3. That's the best thing for the 49ers. Keep Trey Lance as QB3.
Why?
Because you're going to need him. And I know you and I have had this discussion, and I don't want to get into with the voodoo doll on Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold seeing ghosts. I think you're going to need quarterbacks. The 17-game season is a long and winding road, and I think that the Niners might need Trey Lance to play quarterback this year.
If I don't argue with the idea of them needing a third quarterback, sure, why are you so intent on that quarterback being Trey?
Because
do you believe he gives you that much more markedly chance of winning games than Brandon Allen right now?
I don't know if it's that much of a bigger edge.
We all agree he needs seasoning and developing.
Right.
So I'm just talking about right now.
Yes.
I believe Brandon Allen at least gives you the same chance to win a football game today that Trey Lance does. Trey's he needs more time.
He does. He needs more time, and I think that if the Niners kept him as QB3, he could get more time under their tutelage, and maybe he could develop to a spot where you could get something out of him. And at the very least, he is an insurance policy going forward, because you mentioned it. You don't know what the future holds, and we've learned that throughout the course of everything. I mean, you never know what's going to happen in terms of just about anything. So for me, having a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And Brandon Allen, even if Brandon Allen is slightly better than Trey Lance right now, at the end of this year, Sam Darnold and Brandon Allen are both most likely going to be gone. So then you're in a spot where you'll need a backup next year. And I know that it's kind of a long-term thing, but if you're not going to get something of some worth for Trey Lance, you're not going to cut Trey Lance. So if you're going to get a 7th-round pick for Trey Lance, I'd rather keep him.
I guess I'm failing to see what it is you get and Trey gets out of that. If you're never playing, if the goal is, hey, we're going to need a third quarterback, but everyone submits that this guy's not ready, he needs more seasoning. So I don't even know if serving in that QB3 role, should you get there, is all that effective. And you don't have plans for him to someday be your starter or someone that you're putting resources into, because even as you said, you keep him in your system under your tutelage. Well, your tutelage is not going to your QB3. He's not getting reps. He's not getting any time with the ones. He's going to be over there with the scout team. You got a game this week that you're getting ready for, and we are not spending time working on you, Trey. So if you're never going to do that, I'm having a hard time finding the motivation for either side to be here together.
Well, his side, you don't have to be motivated for in terms of, yes, you want to do right by Trey.
Sure.
But you're not going to do right by Trey at the expense of your own depth chart and your own organization.
But is that at the expense of that's my question.
I do believe so. I think that
Trey's that much better than Brandon Allen right now?
I think he's better than Brandon Allen.
Not what he could be. Not his. Well,
that's part of it. That's part of it, what he could be, because if you don't have Trey Lance, then what he could be no longer matters. But what you have in Trey Lance and what he could be, he's under contract for 3 more years if you want to go that route. He's got,
obviously,
this is year 3.
You're not picking up a 5th-year option.
No, but you have him under contract. Brandon Allen at the end of the year is free to go about the country. Shout out Southwest Airlines, and I love Southwest Airlines, and I'd love to be in the high B group, the low A group. But Trey Lance, if you believe there's something still that might be there, you've got him under contract.
Right, but I just feel like there's a faulty premise being developed here, because the idea of what he could become, right? But all I hear everyone agree with, and I do too, is that, this guy needs to play. He's not going to get better if he doesn't play. Well, that's not going to be here, even in practice.
Right.
So you're hoping somehow you got to keep him because he might, over the next 2 years, get really good, except for we agree that the only way he's going to get good is he's got to play, and he's not going to play here. So how are you getting to the end of this conversation?
Well, he might be able to play here. The only way he can't play
Only if
here,
there are major accidents. You're not working with him in practice.
he can play here if you get into a spot where you've got some wiggle room, or you've got a lead in the game, or you've got a cushion, or the only way he can't play here is if he's not on your team anymore.
You're not trying to have him play here. Let's put it that way. You are
not right now.
You're not putting resources into him.
But if he's QB3, it doesn't mean he's like QB3 forever.
No,
you
but
can
I guess
always like bump him up.
You can bump him up, sure.
If you're playing Arizona and you're 14.5-point favorites and you feel like you could beat Arizona in your sleep, you QB2ify him, and maybe he gets a quarter in that game.
I guess, but again, we're playing so many ifs here, and I'm failing to see how this is good for Trey. Like I am really trying to think about Trey here. This is not a good game for Trey to play. Everyone agrees with the premise of he needs to play. He needs more seasoning, right? And therefore, in order to do that here, we've got all sorts of ifs that need to happen. People need to get hurt. You need to be up by 24 points in the fourth quarter. All of that. That's the only avenue for him to get that seasoning. And then the hope is that that accidental seasoning might lead to, over the next 2 years, him becoming a good quarterback who you're probably not going to need anyway because you have a different starter. And then that sets you up for a fifth-year option that you're not going to take because he's not your starter. Like, that just feels like a wild maze of definitely not going to play out that way to me. And at his detriment.
Well,
at his detriment, you're going to hang on to this guy for 17 ifs to fall into place, and then maybe the hope that he might end up being good.
But what do you owe him?
And
what do you owe him?
A paycheck.
Thank you.
So I'm not saying you owe it to him.
Right.
But also, by the way, during all of those ifs, you're dealing with the dynamic and the questions and the constant and the fans and the screaming and the if and how about Trey and why Sam, and you're dealing with that the whole time too. I'm having a hard time.
Most of that goes away.
I'm having a hard time with why it's not better for both sides to move on at any price.
It's not better for two reasons. One, you still think that he can be a good player in your system, and I believe that they think that. I don't think that they're ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and maybe on Tuesday they cut him. And if that's the case, well then...
I don't think that'll happen.
Exactly. Well, and why won't they cut him?
Finances.
And also because they think that there's something there. If he was no good at all...
I think finances.
But, I mean, look, think about the Giants and Tommy LaStella. They cut him because, even though they owed him money... They cut him because he was no longer any good.
But it was less of a penalty, and that's not a hard cap league.
Right.
So
but
it's
you're
different.
With me in terms of, like, there are motivations for a lot of different things. D Ford's a great example.
Yeah,
They owed D Ford money, but they cut him because D Ford could no longer play.
I don't think they think he stinks. I think they think he's not ready, and I think that there are negative answers for both sides if he's on the team this year. The Niners have to keep a dynamic they don't want, and Trey Lance is stuck in a spot where he's not going to get the seasoning he needs.
But where will he get the seasoning? I don't know if there's a spot, and this is where I'll answer your first question.
Somewhere else might give him reps in practice, like QB2 reps, maybe.
Sure, maybe, but the seasoning he needs, he's not going to get.
Teams that aren't trying to win a Super Bowl this year?
Right, but you're a team that tends to need multiple quarterbacks in a season. So
you can have multiple quarterbacks. One of them doesn't have to be Trey.
Yes, but if something happens to Brock Purdy, God forbid, thoughts and prayers and all the rest of it, well, then Trey Lance now is QB2, and now he's just one Sam Darnold ghost sighting away from being in the game.
Or Brandon Allen's QB3.
I don't think that you just get rid of Trey Lance because the noise of the media and the fans and the clamor, I don't think that is such a driving force that you settle for a 7th-round pick just to get rid of him.
Yeah, I do.
I think that's a losing way to approach it.
And I think you're leaving out Trey. I wonder if people understand where I'm coming from with this idea. It's actually for Trey also. Like, they like him as a person. They understand that this did not go the way they expected it to go. And Peter King answered that question. I go, what do you think Trey wants? And he said, anywhere but San Francisco. He said this yesterday. this is not the right place for Trey's career to continue. We are asking.
Give him away then for a 7.
Yeah, if that's what's being offered. I'm not saying they will, but they should.
Yeah, I'm saying they shouldn't.
I mean, this is not why. This is a horrible place for him to be right now. If I were Trey, I would feel like this is jail. Get me out of here. Like if you're not going to make me QB2, and by the way, you all know I support that. But if that's the case, there's got to be a team that's at least interested in where my career is going to go. It does not appear that the 49ers are that team. So get me to a team that does, and the Niners would love these questions to stop. The positives in this, to me, just totally get outweighed by the negatives in terms of having him on the roster. They did what they did a couple of days ago for a reason. Like they've been calling all these teams for 6 months.
Right.
There's a reason.
And there's a reason why he's still on the team. It's because they haven't gotten anything back of any substance. They might not have gotten any offer. So you've got no offer from any other team, and so now you're in a spot where, Trey, you know what? We're giving you $34 million guaranteed. You're QB3.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he can call the shots. I'm just saying the Niners might have thought they had some leverage during the offseason that they do not have.
They didn't have it then, and they certainly don't have it now.
Well,
maybe after tonight at 7 o'clock they will.
Maybe.